It took me becoming truly free to realize that the women in my lineage never were. I was sitting on the beach outside my new home in Los Angeles in 2023, almost 3,000 miles from the place I'd always called home, and the realization that my mother and grandmother were never truly free hit me like a tidal wave. My grandmother walked 2 steps behind my grandfather. My mother followed my father's lead because, as she would regularly proclaim, she was scared of her own shadow. You may be wondering what prompted my move across the country. Was it for a job? No. Was it for a man? No. Was there a comfortable home waiting for me? Again, no. I moved without a job. I moved without a partner. I moved not knowing where I would live. I moved while recovering my health after treatment for breast cancer. You see, I'd been waiting for a sign since 2018, and when it came, I moved. I moved with a calm sense of knowing that I would be okay. I moved with a deep sense of trust that this is where I was meant to be. I moved when I broke free of the self-imposed prison of trusting others more than I trusted myself. I didn't start out this way. It took me most of my life to fully trust myself and claim my freedom. You see, I come from a long line of women who didn't trust themselves. My grandma Stella fled war in Greece with my grandfather arriving in a new country, surrounded by unfamiliar sights, sounds, and a language she would never fully master. She lived in a culture where the man was king, and that did not mean that the woman was queen. She walked 2 steps behind my grandfather, and her one son was held high above her 5 daughters. She was left a widow before she learned to fully navigate her new country. She relied on her husband and then her grown children to keep her safe. My mother, Jean, was separated from her family twice as a young child to recuperate from rheumatic fever, sometimes going weeks without seeing her loved ones. This left her with an unquenchable desire for safety and comfort. Her father died when she was 16 years old, so she dropped out of high school and went to work in a factory because the family business he had built didn't survive to support them. This left her with deep insecurities about her intelligence and her ability to take care of herself. She married my father looking for stability and someone she could trust to keep her safe. She often told me, "I'm scared of my own shadow." Can you imagine the impact of having that thought on your life? She also told me, "Don't be like me." As a teenager, I was determined to follow that advice and live a life of adventure and freedom. I wasn't going to let fear run my life. I wasn't going to let a man run my life. I'd like to spend the rest of my time regaling you with my wild tales of freedom and adventure, but that just wasn't my path. There was one thing missing that would have changed the trajectory of my life: self-trust. Without it, fear kept me small. Without it, I chose what was familiar. Without it, the fear of failure crippled me from even trying. Without it, I looked to others for approval. Without it, I trusted others more than I trusted myself. Because I didn't trust myself, I was outsourcing my life to others, outsourcing my freedom, outsourcing my dreams, outsourcing my happiness. Now, there are plenty of things that it's helpful to outsource in life. Laundry, cleaning, bookkeeping. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the big decisions that impact your happiness and fulfillment in life. Because I didn't trust myself, I was outsourcing my life. I didn't start out that way. I started out as a carefree, confident little girl, but little by little, I stopped trusting myself and found it easier to let others lead the way. My desire for others' approval above my own started in my family, as it often does. My parents had a traditional marriage by the standards of the late 1960s and 70s. My father was the breadwinner, and my mother took care of the home and children. He would give her weekly table money for household expenses. She would cook dinner and clean up after. It used to infuriate me when my father would walk away from the table without even clearing his plate. My mother's life revolved around my father. He set the budget, planned any social outings or vacations. I thought I knew how to keep that from happening to me. I would always make my own money and not have to ask my husband for it. I would be in control. I also learned that the role of the woman was to smooth things over and don't make waves. Conflict was avoided at all costs. This one took me longer to figure out. Every time I was faced with a challenging conversation, I froze. I doubted myself. What if I'm looking at this wrong? What if I'm wrong? Despite my lack of self-trust, I did claim a lot of firsts in my female lineage. But my addiction to approval from others became ingrained early in my life as I experienced bullying from my oldest sister. She was 5 years older than me and constantly criticized how I looked and acted. I rarely had a break from it. I was an extrovert in a family of introverts, and thus I was the lightning rod attracting her insults. I was too loud, too silly, too awkward. I learned to mold myself to each situation to avoid being attacked. My mother would tell me, just ignore her. If she sees you're upset, it'll just be worse. Thus, I learned to smile and act as though everything was okay, no matter how I was feeling. This desire for approval from others extended beyond my sister. My self-confidence increasingly became reliant on how others viewed me. I wasn't looking at what I thought. I looked to others. Get good grades in school, get a good job, move up the corporate ladder, look great, get married, buy a home, have children, and make it all look easy. Never let them see you sweat. I was 24 years old and off to a great start in my career, living in New York City. So when did my desire for freedom and adventure go out the window, leaving me seeking what was safe and familiar? I wasn't ready to handle the discomfort of the unfamiliar. I wasn't ready to process the discomfort of living on my own in New York City after living in the safety and comfort of my parents' home in the suburbs. I just wanted the discomfort to stop. So I set out to find a husband to bring back my feeling of safety. Most of my friends were married or part of a couple by then, and the thought of taking the time to discover what I truly wanted was the furthest thing from my mind. I married, had 2 beautiful daughters, and the home I'd always dreamed of. Yet I always had this feeling that there was something more for me than the safe and familiar life I was living. I turned my trust over to my husband, because of course he knew better than me what was right for me. I agreed to his suggestion of where we would live. He got the mortgage for our home, paid the bills, and handled investments. I fooled myself into thinking I was different because there were small differences in how we operated. He did some of the cooking, helped care for the children, and someone else cleaned the house. I made my own money and was free to spend much of it as I wished. It was a good life and it felt safe, but I couldn't shake that feeling. Oh my God, I was my mother. Despite my lack of self-trust, I did claim several firsts in my female lineage. I got a college degree, I had a great career in New York City, and traveled extensively within and outside of the country, with a lifestyle that felt a lot bigger than theirs. There were gourmet dinners out, luxury cars and vacations, and life was feeling a lot freer. And then it hit me. Yes, I was traveling, but my company and my husband were planning my trips. I really was my mother. Did my mother or grandmother ever have these thoughts, that there was something more for them too? I'll never know, but my guess is they weren't even aware. The times they were living in and the trauma they survived likely kept them from asking themselves the question, what else is there for me? Their focus on safety and survival kept them from hearing the voice inside of them that would reassure them that they were already safe, that it was safe to try new things. Instead, their minds interpreted everything that was unfamiliar as stressful and threatening. Like them, I thought the things that would make me feel safe and happy were outside of me. I never stopped to ask myself what I truly wanted. I looked to others to tell me what I should want. I molded myself to each situation, and then I was frustrated when my needs weren't met. So how did I reclaim my trust and freedom? The trust that moved me across the country 2 months after completing treatment for breast cancer with a sense of calm and ease. The trust to create a life that feels purposeful, joyful, and free. Again, it didn't happen overnight. It started with getting quiet enough with myself to connect with my inner wisdom, with the part of me that would allow me to see possibilities that I had no evidence could ever happen for me. Developing a consistent meditation practice was a big part of this. I learned a new way of being in the world. I learned that I am not my mind and I can control the thoughts I think. I changed my relationship with fear. I no longer view it as an enemy, but as a sign that I'm growing. I learned to get comfortable with the discomfort of growth. I started to trust myself enough to set and keep boundaries. And when I started saying no to others, I learned to say yes to myself. When was the last time you said a big yes to yourself? I'm not just talking about the, I'll go to the gym today kind of yes. I'm talking about the life-changing yes that you feel deep in your soul. If it's taking you a moment to come up with an answer, you are not alone. Congratulations, you are human. Your mind is wired to look for danger for your very survival, and it views change as one of those dangers. Every time you have a single thought about something new you want to say yes to, your mind goes to work looking for reasons to say no. Go for that promotion at work or change your career? Danger. Why not stay in the job you're good at that feels safe and familiar? Agonizing over having that conversation with your partner where you express your needs? Danger. How will they react? What if they leave me and I can't pay my bills? You watch as one decision after another goes by, staying the same staying small, settling for good enough when your soul is crying for great. Now, instead of outsourcing my happiness and my dreams, I outsource the support I need to create the life I desire. I first got clear on exactly what I wanted and developed an unwavering belief in my ability to create it. When I tell the story of the transformation I've created in my life, I'm often asked how I trust myself so implicitly. How do I act on my desires with such confidence? It's because I know I have a choice, and so do you. Isn't the discomfort of acting on your desires better than the discomfort of thinking that you can't have the life that you want, or that you have to wait for someone or something else to give it to you? So it's time to ask yourself, when are you going to stop outsourcing your dreams, your happiness, and your freedom, and reclaim your one magnificent life